Entitled Mom tries to deny her dying son his wish and tries to kill him because the books I got for him are sATaNiC. Some backstory. I'm in a D&D group with a couple of friends from nearby, and one of the members of the group was a kid who was about 15 years old. He's a really sweet kid, likes helping other people out, and he's a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons. He also has cancer in both of his lungs. He's from a religious family that basically forces him to act pure while he's in their sight. The mom is WBC level rabid, while the dad is just a sensible person who just tries to get him to be a good kid. When he's out of sight of his parents, he just does normal teen stuff. Because of his mom, the only books he was allowed to own were Christian books and Bibles. He joined our group mainly as a way to escape his home life and his mom. A couple of weeks ago, the cancer in his lungs started to get to him, so he was taken to a hospital by his parents. He contacted me about this a day after he was taken to the hospital, stating that he wanted a monster manual as his last wish, stating that he was tired of reading the same things. I bought him the book from Barnes & Noble, but considering that he's a dying teen, I got him Valo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes stacked on top of that. The next day, which was his birthday, he was still in the hospital, so I brought him the books as a gift. After he blew out the candles, we had cake, and he started opening gifts. Mine was the first to be opened. Seeing what they were, he immediately got this humongous grin on his face and hugged me. Meanwhile, his mom stared down at the books with a look of pure disgust, with her husband staring at her with this wary look in his eyes. She picks up one of the books and relights one of the candles and holds the damn book over it to try and set it on fire. I managed to stop her and demand, "What the fuck are you doing? He asked me to get those books, and I'm not going to let you take them away." His mom simply stared me down and said something along the lines of the books being sinful, sATaNiC, and full of evil, and that her son had no business with them. I retort and say that her son can read what he wants, and that she shouldn't have to force him to be Christian. She starts getting red in the face and yelling at me about essentially forcing children to believe in God from a young age. I state that I'm a Baptist, which I actually am, and say that faith in God is a matter between God and the individual. She turns red all over and actively starts to try and destroy the books, with me, my friend, and her husband trying to stop her. At one point, I shouted, "Would God want you to do this? To restrict your dying son's freedom of expression?" Right in her face. This just sets her fucking ablaze. She tosses the books aside and starts trying to strangle her son, and her husband calls security immediately when she does this. Security get here within about a minute of the two of us trying to pry him off of her son and drag her away, with her shouting that we are all catamites to the devil. Both her husband and my friend charge her with child abuse, assault, and attempted murder. Trial's still going, and I'll try to update this post as the trial goes on. Edit. Holy shit, I came back to 300 karma and this with 3k upvotes. Thank you so much for your support. Edit 2. Whoever just gave me gold, thank you so much. Edit 3. Thank you guys for the silver. Edit 4. Trial was almost a disaster. Me, him, and her husband all prosecuted against her. The moment she saw us, she tried to tackle us shouting something about divine retribution, but the officers restrained her. During the whole thing, she kept pinning the blame on me and him, calling us corrupted by sin. Needless to say, she was pronounced guilty of all 3 charges that I mentioned earlier. The moment she heard this, she went apeshit and tried to attack the judge, but officers tased her to the floor. Now she'll be serving for 20 years for the other 3 charges, with 10 more on top of assaulting a court official. Thank you all for the support you guys gave us. Edit 5. To all who are wondering, my friend's fine. The cancer is gone from his lungs. Reminds me of my first grade teacher, who thought I was a Satanist because I played Paper Mario 64. Ah yes, the satanic activities of folding a paper airplane and hitting things with a comically large hammer. I've seen so many posts about crazy Christian moms going psycho over "sATaNiC books and music." It's so stupid. Just let your kid have fun, especially one who's literally on his deathbed. My mum is one of those mums. She offered to buy me a laptop, but refused the one I wanted as it was made by men, and that's a devil thing. I'm 25 and not remotely religious. I'm going to name my firstborn Damien. I started listening to music I actually liked when I was 19 and in college. Up to that day I had avoided conversations about music with my friends because I didn't want to sound like an idiot who didn't know WTF Guns N' Roses was. I came to know what GNR was when I turned 22, around 2004-05. Jesus Christ. I remember people asking me what type of music I liked, and my answer was always I don't like music. I mean, what kind of creep says that? Edit. I forgot to add context. I was not allowed to listen to music because of my Christian upbringing. Super religious people always forget what their religion is about. For example, extreme Christians often forget that Christianity is about forgiveness. Like they say that being gay will get you sent straight to hell when the Bible never mentions being gay a sin. All it does is indirectly say that you can't have gay marriage or sex. This is because it says that marriage is between a man and a woman and the only permitted sex is married sex. Boomer tries to steal my baby. I'm a 20-year-old female with a 3-month-old son. We took our son to the park for the first time. They have swings good for little babies, so we had him in there. He absolutely loved it, by the way. There was an older lady there with 3 kids. I'm assuming her grandchildren, because they were pretty young, and she seemed my grandma's age. She was eyeing us up since the moment we got there. My fiance is a smoker, and he's not allowed anywhere near the baby while smoking. So he went to the baseball fields to sit and smoke. This is a decent ways away. Even though this is a very small town, I didn't know the woman as we didn't live in the town that we are currently at. We live in the biggest town in that county, but apparently the county's park didn't have swings even though it's huge. What? But I was very familiar with this town as I lived here for many years when I was younger, so he was fine with leaving us alone, just not familiar enough to know the people anymore. My step-grandparents also lived here, so I felt comfortable. After my fiance had went over to the ballpark, this lady approached me and began talking to me. She asked me how I like babysitting. I laughed and told her I wasn't babysitting, that this was my son. This set her off. She grabbed a hold of my wrist and told me don't lie to her, that I'm too young for this to be my son, and that she doesn't believe me. She told me if I didn't produce valid forms of identification for both of us, she would call the police for kidnapping. So here's the issue with that. I don't carry my wallet on me that often. And the only forms of identification I have for my son is his insurance card, as his birth certificate and social security card have not come in yet due to everything being bogged down from the virus. I told the lady that, and she turned in her group in my wrist stating that that's a lie because they give you documents at the hospital. They don't. It was escalated to the point where she shoves me down and tries to grab my son, stating that she will be keeping a hold of him until the cops arrived. I quickly got up and grabbed my son from her. I didn't punch her, but I did sorta palm her nose, which I guess I did harder than I meant to ask. She started bleeding. She yelled at me that she was going to press charges for assault. My fiance was making his way back during this time and caught the tail end of the confrontation. Skipping ahead to when the cops show, they are talking to each of us, but the old lady won't stop screeching. So they take her father away to talk. I'm in complete fight mode and terrified. I'm frantically explaining that I don't have ID, but this is my son. We just came here to the park to play. If there was any way I could prove I was the mother of my son, I showed him a photo of him getting pulled from me, C-section, and him on my chest a few hours later. Obviously he looks different now, but you can tell it's the same baby. We were allowed to go home, and we are told we'd be hearing from someone about the assault and charge. I'm aware there is some context missing. I just really don't have the time to sit down and write down everything, so if there's any questions I'll try and answer to the best of my ability. Update: we set up an appointment with a lawyer for this Monday and will be going to the police station later today. We called ahead and made an appointment for 3. It's noon currently. Someone had mentioned seeing if the park had cameras. I was pretty sure they didn't as it's a very small area, but I called anyways and turns out they did. They agreed to send a copy of the footage to me, but they only have a couple, so I'm not sure if what happened was caught on tape as the cameras are near the pavilion and the swings are off to the side. I'd also like to add that I didn't expect this to blow up so much and would like to thank everyone for their kind words and support. I know I should have reacted better, but I was in such shock, and it happened so fast. I feel very guilty for not protecting my son, and I'd appreciate it if the comments about me doing a shit job about it would stop, please. Update 2. We went to a lawyer on Monday who instructed us not to really talk about the case going forward, but there will be charges pressed against the woman, and possibly against the police involved, as what they did during the situation was apparently very illegal. Hopefully this will move quickly, and I can have an update soon. If not, I'll try and remember to update when everything's done. Update 3. So the cameras didn't pick anything up. Ingot charged with assault and the charges against the old lady we had dropped. We are going to an appeal. Entitled Dad is upset when I won't let his son play with my daughter's heart monitor. As requested, another entitled parent story featuring my kid's health issues. This is a bit of a long one. When my oldest daughter was born, she had some significant heart problems. NICU for a while, and then at 10 weeks old, she developed supraventricular tachycardia, which basically means that her heart would beat excessively for no reason at all. She was in pediatric ICU for 2 weeks after nearly dying from organ failure. She's fine now. This particular incident happened about a week after she was released from ICU. She'd been sent home with a portable heart monitor. We went to the cardiologist once a week for the batteries on the monitor to be changed and the readings to be checked. On this day, we were sitting in the waiting room at the pediatric cardiology office. Wait times were insane here, as there are only 2 doctors for the entire region, and it wasn't unusual to wait 30 minutes or longer for an appointment. Entitled Dad and Bratty Kid were the only other ones there. But, here we are in the waiting room. My daughter is asleep in her car seat carrier, and I'm lightly half dozing. Something touched my knee. I look down, and Bratty Kid is there. Me, hi. Bratty Kid, is that a real baby? Me, laughing, yes, it is. Bratty Kid, is it a boy? My daughter was dressed in a yellow sleeper with pink strawberries on it. Lacy pink socks. Pink hat. Me, no, it's a girl. Back, what's that? He's pointing to the heart monitor. Me, that's to make sure her heart is beating right. Bratty Kid, can I play with it? Me, no. Sorry, it's not a toy. Bratty Kid, I'm bored. I looked across the room and the dad is flat out asleep. He's actually snoring. Me, why don't you go talk to your dad, then? At this moment, I'm called up to the insurance desk to fill out another form. Back had gone back to his dad, so I left my baby there as I was only about 4 feet away. I turn to go sit down, and Ed is awake and walking toward me. Entitled Dad, do you have a toy my son can play with? Me, nope, sorry. Entitled Dad, he says you do. Give it to him. Me, I don't. Entitled Dad, I need a nap. Just give him the toy, so I can go back to sleep. Me, there is no toy. You should have brought one for him if you wanted to sleep so bad. If looks could kill. He went back to his side of the room, and I sit down. About another 10 minutes pass. Daughter is awake now and hungry. I'm digging through the diaper bag. As a first-time mom with a child in and out of the hospital, I hadn't had the time or energy to develop a system for the bag yet, so it took me a minute. By the time I'd found what I needed, my daughter was screaming, and so was her heart monitor, the cords of which are in Bratty Kid's hand. The loud beeps from the disconnected monitor wake up Entitled Dad. Entitled Dad shoots out of his chair. Entitled Dad, the fuck is that? I don't even get time to answer before a nurse rushes out to us. She drops to the floor to check my daughter. Meanwhile I snatch the heart monitor from Bratty Kid's hand. Bratty Kid, that's mine. Give it back. Entitled Dad, why are you taking his toys from him? Me, go back to sleep. It's all you seem to be good for. He grabs my arm and yanks the monitor from me to give it back to the kid, who promptly drops it. Nurse, picking up the monitor, you need to leave now. This is sensitive medical equipment. If it's damaged, we are billing you for it. Entitled Dad, you have no right to talk to me like that. Do you know who I am? Nurse, you're the guy who's about to get arrested if you don't leave now. On his way out, he screamed profanities / about me, the nurse, and the clinic. His wife, who'd been in the back with the doctor, was told he was banned from the clinic and was handed a bill for the cost of the monitor. A few weeks later during another appointment, the nurse told me he'd sued the clinic for emotional trauma. It was dropped when the clinic countersued for the cost of the monitor. Why do entitled parents think that random things are toys, but they don't really do anything that would seem remotely fun? Like, it beeps. How cool is that? I'll have it now. Just let entitled brat play with your dildo. You are too old for that toy. I'm sorry, this guy tried to sue for emotional trauma over his brat not being allowed to touch medical equipment? Jesus Christ. Some people are just not right in the head. Part of me wishes the clinic and OP could have teamed up to counter-sue for the emotional damages of messing with the medical equipment of a very sick little baby. Your Honor, that nurse yelled at me. I demand dollars. Your Honor, as I was sitting in a clinic with my child, who was only alive due to the miracle of modern medicine, this man fell asleep, left his child to me to mind, without my consent, disturbed my sick daughter, allowed his child to interfere with my daughter's sensitive equipment to the point where it interfered with the readings, set off multiple alarms and finally broke it. I demand this man gets lobotomized.